Hi guys, it's Debbie, and today I'll be speaking about Edward Scissorhands, which personally is my favourite film to watch around Halloween time. A lot of people prefer to consider Edward Scissorhands more of a Christmas film, but I prefer to consider it a Halloween film, more because of the topic it includes and of the themes it covers. Edward Scissorhands came out in 1990 and stars Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder and Diane Wiest, all directed by the king of Halloween films, Tim Burton. Tim Burton conceived Edward Scissorhands from his childhood in Burbank and originally planned on creating a musical. Edward Scissorhands is the story of an android, Edward, which looks completely like a human and was created by an inventor who never managed to complete him because of his sudden death, and the missing part of Edward were his hands. So Edward then attached a series of scissors and sharp blades to have some sort of device that would help him throughout his life. Following the death of the inventor, which for him was like a father, he passed a long time inside the inventor's mansion, this castle, alone and secluded from the rest of society, which, because of his looks, would probably never accept him. Because Edward looks like a human, but he isn't one. His face is full of cuts because of the blades and the scissors that he has. His clothes are made of leather straps, and he obviously doesn't know how to behave in what we would consider normal social situations. Edward is discovered and saved by the most unlikely person in town, Peg, a door-to-door saleswoman. Instead of being frightened by his looks, Peg helps Edward and takes him home with her, where he befriends her son and daughter, Kim. The neighbourhood in which Peg lives is a suburban road with seemingly perfect architecture, with identical houses, with identical lawns, identical cars, and everybody looks like they've come out of the manual of the perfect family. So husband and wife, with the wife at home all day gossiping and cooking and the husband at work. The main activities include barbecuing on the weekend, walking and more gossiping. So obviously Edward is the person that would fit in least in this situation. As soon as he starts to live in this neighbourhood, everybody is very curious. Some of the women of the neighbourhood are just plain nosy or want to get their hands onto Edward. Others treat him as if he was a being created by Satan. So obviously it's very hard for him to fit in. Although Peg and the family try to teach him how to behave in social situations, they give him some clothes to make him look more normal, but obviously Edward is a total black sheep. To some of the women, he looks like something out of a gothic nightmare, and the husbands usually tend to make fun of him. Soon Edward starts to interact more with the community, he starts to get more active, and he starts to make a lot of friends, but also some enemies. As I said before, Tim Burton based Edward Scissorhands on his experience growing up in a suburban area of Burbank in California, although the movie is filmed in Florida. Burton grew up in an environment in which he felt isolated and he felt he couldn't communicate with other people. A teenage Burton had expressed his feelings of feeling isolated with a picture of a man with blades instead of his fingers, and this was obviously the inspiration for the character of Edward. Although Burton stated that in Edward Scissorhands he didn't want to be judgmental, but just show how some neighbourhoods can be weird in their own way. So what looks absolutely perfect in Edward Scissorhands is actually quite creepy. So Edward Scissorhands looks like the creepy guy in the story. He looks like the weirdo, the person we shouldn't talk to, the scary character. But actually the creepiest, scariest part of Edward Scissorhands is the perfect neighbourhood, with everything happening robotically at timed intervals, with repeated gestures all day long. Then these women continue to be nosy and wanted to know what other people are doing. Some of the women were actually annoyed that Peg hadn't introduced Edward to the community, where as a matter of fact she did this to protect him from these women. Edward Scissorhands is obviously portrayed by Johnny Depp, but other actors considered taking the part. For example, Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise were considered for the part. Also Michael Jackson and Robert Downey Jr. expressed interest in the part, but in the end the choice went for Johnny Depp, which wanted to let go of his status of teen idol that he had created in 21 Jump Street. He wanted to step out of that role, and Edward Scissorhands was the excellent opportunity. To prepare for his role, Depp studied Charlie Chaplin films to understand how to convey emotions without speaking. Edward Scissorhands is considered by some critics one of the best of Tim Burton films, and it definitely contains retains some of his trademarks, as it is a dark, quirky fantasy film. Tim Burton stated that the main themes Edward Scissorhands are self-discovery and isolation, because as we see, Edward has been isolated in the castle, and then he is also an outcast in the society, but he slowly starts to realise who he is. He starts to realise he isn't a monster. He starts to make friends with people that are completely different from him, opening everybody's mind. I personally love Edward Scissorhands because it joins some of the elements I most enjoy watching. So we have gothic elements, we have elements of love and of acceptance. I also love how Tim Burton showed the annoyingly perfect neighborhood with this pastel color palette, which completely clashes with Edward's appearance. Edward is all of us when we feel judged, when we feel out of place, when we feel isolated. Luckily, there are people like Peg, which break the walls of stereotypes and help other people, although different from them. Let me know what your favourite Halloween film is with a comment here below, and let me know whether you think Edward Scissorhands should be considered a Halloween film or a Christmas film. I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye!